when the dollar is worth 60 cents. Could that be something we're seeing in the near future, considering all the things that have been happening with these huge packages? We're talking 1.3 trillion, and this is for 2 months' time. 1.3 trillion. Talking about a deficit of that much within 2 months. So what our current prez is doing is way bigger than any of his predecessors. You have to ask yourself, where is this going to go? Obviously, you can't just keep printing money, right? With all the businesses being closed, this is not anything that's going to work in the long run. And now they're talking about closing everything again. We have that in various states talking about this. And curiously, I've been talking about gold and silver as well. And honestly, I need to take my own advice. I've already bought, I don't know how much I would say. I'm not going to say how much, but I've bought some. Let's just put it that way. I need to buy more. I'm thinking that the dollar is going to go way lower. Honestly, that's just my opinion. I don't think it's an opinion, dude. I really don't think it is an opinion. You have to realize where we're at. And right now, the prices are still low on these things. So, I mean, it's up to you. You know what I mean? All I know is your dollar is going to be worth a lot less very soon. So, it might be wise to put it into something else. There's a lot of different things you can use, obviously, out there. I mean, various ways you can invest and such. But that's just my recommendation. At any rate, getting onto some other stuff here. They're now talking about essentially looking for people and seeing whether or not they're wearing on their face, as you would say, a covering of some sort, right? Now, they're actually doing this in a way to where you can get a $500 bill if you're not wearing one. This is in Florida. I saw a lot of things happening over the last week with Florida. A lot of things happening in the aspect of closing businesses and making new rules like this, as you can see here. Doesn't sound very good to be in Florida right now. And I'm thinking various other states are following suit as well. Now, we just had this happen. Okay, we're talking about a bill. Okay, we're talking about a $2 billion deal. Okay, for a solution to the strain, as you can imagine. And it's curious the names of the companies that are a part of it. I wanted to show you this real quick. Obviously, we're talking about this here, folks, right? But one of the company's names is Bio N, as you would say, Tech. That's an interesting name. That's a very interesting name, considering some of the stuff I'm going to cover in my other video over on my channel called Mysteries of the Unknown. Oh man, we got some interesting stuff to cover over there, folks. We're talking about a lot of interesting things going on with technology and being able to modify, as you would say, DNA and things like that. And could this right here have something to do with it? That's a good question. I'm actually really wondering myself. And there's a lot of things coming out right now. Elon Musk is introducing something. You can actually listen to music in your head with the thing that he's developing. There's a lot of other things. Actually, there's even some stuff we've been covering that now we have scientific evidence for. I'm going to be covering on my other channel. And it has to do with towers. You're going to want to see it, okay? You're going to want to see that video, right? It's coming out on my other channel, Mysteries of the Unknown. I've had to make, as you would say, new channels. This one here is clearly not getting any, what would you call it, promotion? Yeah, I think that's the word I'm looking for, folks. All right. Now, getting on to some other things here, check this out. Those who've never actually taken the test to see whether or not they have the strain are getting letters in the mail saying, oh, look, you got it. And what happened here? Let me explain what happened. This is rather curious. So these people signed up to go get checked, right? They, for some reason, maybe had to go to work or something came up and they couldn't go. All right? They couldn't go and get checked. But they signed up, right? After that, like a week later, they get a letter in the mail, or 2 weeks later, whatever it is, and it says, "Oh, you got it. It says you have the strain." The guy never actually went to actually get checked. So it's like they're literally just sending these, like, "Oh, well, we're just going to say they all got it." You know what I mean? That's what's going on here, folks. So you can't say nothing is happening here. Obviously, it's just so obvious at this point. Getting on to some other stuff here. Yeah, this is why I don't say certain words. Let me show you this here, folks. Something just got deleted completely from Twitter, okay? And it happens to be this here. Deleted completely. 100% deleted. Gone. Period. Okay, let me show you this. All right, just a sec here. Okay, so basically Twitter has now completely deleted everything that has to do with this topic right here. Let's see if I can make it bigger for everybody to see. I think you know what I'm talking about here, folks. Anybody that talks about this pretty much is gone from Twitter. And of course, I think I know why. Curiously, I was looking into this. I just saw these stories and I kind of look around and I noticed other things. Maybe it has something to do with this here, folks. Might have something to do with something we've talked about. Actually, we're talking about those cabinets. You remember the cabinets? Yeah, the cabinets, right? That got kind of out there where everybody saw it. Okay, you remember this website and the cabinets and people buying really expensive pillows and cabinets? Remember that? Ellen, I covered it here, I'm pretty sure. I covered it on some of my channels. Because I noticed a lot of big channels that are completely out in the middle of like talking about celebs in Hollywood and whatever, they're even talking about it. Pretty much everybody was. For example, they even talked about it. A lot of big channels talked about it. That's probably why. That's probably why that they decided to get rid of these guys. Okay? Because of this. It got out there too big. That's probably why. Okay, that's just my theory. Now we have a number of websites, and we're talking big ones, that are simply not showing up in the search results, period. Period. Okay? You have to actually go to other search, as you would say, websites to even find them. And I'm guessing maybe some of them may do the same thing. I don't know. It's interesting. So we had a lot of this going on now of recent. And here's why. Now, you might be wondering, why is nothing ever fixed? Let me show you a reason why some of this is happening. And this is a lot of people don't know this at all. Okay? Apparently, some of those who are on what we call the right, these guys, okay? Some of the ones that are sort of the business guys over there are taking money from companies like the one who owns YouTube. They're taking money from them. Okay, they're getting huge amounts of funds given to them. And this, why would they be doing this? Why all of a sudden would this company be giving them tons of money all of a sudden? Because they know right now they're looking into their company and they think if they give a bunch of money to these guys that want to look into them, maybe they'll stop looking into them. And apparently that's what's going on right now. And it is working. Okay, these guys that supposedly represent us have decided to stop looking into these companies, these social media companies, simply because they got a big paycheck from them. Pretty much. That's what happened. What a surprise. It works every time. Okay. What else do we got here? Let's see. I think oh yeah, here we go. A little bit of other stuff here I wanted to cover really quick. Wow, actually I got a lot of stuff here. Apparently we have now guys that are like essentially taxi drivers. They're having a lot of fun going through some of these cities. Maybe they'll have a car at the end of it, you know, if they're lucky, I guess, because of a certain group that is marching. They're doing a little bit more of the marching, apparently. They're also making your car non-functionable at this point if you drive through the city and they happen to see you and they want to stop you. As you can see with this car, it doesn't look very pretty. Let's see if I can get a little closer. There you go. Doesn't that car look like it's went through a little bit? Yeah, it does, doesn't it? That guy, of course, probably isn't going to want to go through that area anymore. Right? Now, so there's a lot of stuff going on with that as well. Even some rather crazy things like this. Amazing. What happened in this city, Minneapolis, at a shop, you know, where you pawn items. Apparently, they found more than just products inside the store there. Yeah, they found a guy on the ground is what they found. And so, I mean, it's really getting, I mean, you would think this stuff would have already ended, but it isn't. It keeps going and going. And now this is kind of what it's going for. Now, of course, I wanted to mention this real quick as well. Apparently, one of these murals was erased, and it was done via legal route. A lady who was a lawyer said, hey, look, if you can write this here on the street, I want to write this right here on the street. This is what she said to the city folk, okay? The city commissioner, that she wanted to have this written on the street, okay? And they were like, okay, so if we can have this on the street here and it's a public forum, then we should be allowed to have this here. The city guys were like, I don't think we want to have that on the street, so we'll just delete both of them. So that night, they actually erased this sign from the street. Okay? So it worked pretty well doing it that route. Now, getting into probably sort of the main thing of the title of this video, apparently some big things have been going on. It's not just, you know, like I said, I showed you some stuff so far that has to do with these guys. They're doing a lot more than that. Okay? Apparently, as Tim is pointing out here, they went into some buildings owned by the Gov and took them over in several cities. We're talking about the court, as you would say, house, being the getting into them and removing everybody out of them, and now they reside inside them. And we're talking multiple cities this happened. It seems to be like they actually made it happen all at the same time, sort of syncing it up, as you can understand and imagine. Like they're trying to take various buildings, as you would say, over in various cities, and what's their next step, apparently. And this, some people are saying that this is now the official beginning of this here, folks. Let's see if I can show you this. Yeah, here we go. This works. Apparently, they're saying this is the beginning of this for our country. And honestly, they're saying it because they're trying to highlight how the original one happened. And it happened in a very similar manner with buildings like the courthouse, as you would say, being taken. So could we be finally actually entering this stage? Now, what Tim points out really interestingly is that, you know, the way people are going to look at this is they're going to say, oh, there's nothing. Like if this all just stops happening, all this marching stops, people are going to be like, oh, it was never going to become something bigger. Right? But if the marching continues and gets bigger, they're going to be like, oh, of course it was going to get bigger. So everybody's going to be saying one or the other. At this point, they don't want to really say either because they don't want this to be in their mind. They don't want, are we really going there? You know what I mean? Because we all hope that doesn't happen. But the way things are going, and some of the things I've seen and some of the things they've been saying, it sounds like it is going forward. Okay? The question I have for you is, what do you guys think about all this? Well, let me know in the comment section below, and thanks for watching.
Today I'm going to show you how to make a superfood that'll last a lifetime without refrigeration. And it's so nutritious you'll never have to stockpile another food. The food's called pemmican, and it was widely in use by the natives of North America and also by the Western explorers who would go for months without contact with civilization. In the 19th century, even British soldiers had an iron ration of 4 ounces of pemmican. Many of these iron rations were found intact and edible as much as 50 years later. So let's just avert our gaze from modern survival thinking for a minute, and let's think about how the guys who explored the West 150 years ago did it. Now that's exactly the kind of stuff I found in this 350-page book called The Lost Ways. It's probably the only survival book I've actually enjoyed reading, and you won't believe the survival things we've lost to history. Now I found the pemmican recipe on page 48, and I decided to give it a go. Natives used whatever was available to them at the time. Bison, elk, moose, deer, but nowadays people just use what they can buy. You just need to remember to select a low-fat red meat, and beef is perfect for this. So you'll need 6 pounds of beef, 2 pounds of rendered beef tallow, and 1/3 cup of strawberries or blueberries. And that's it. Don't include nuts, seeds, vegetable oils, grains, beans, or dairy products of any kind. Now the first step is to dry the meat and blueberries. First you need to slice the meat very thin. You can use a very sharp knife like this one, or you can keep the beef in the freezer a few hours before slicing it. If you don't have a dehydrator, you can set the oven to the lowest possible temperature, around 130 degrees, and put the strips of meat directly on the rack. So now place a tin foil on the right side of the rack and spread the blueberries out to dry with the meat. Place the rack back inside and crack the oven door to prevent moisture buildup. Let this dry for about 15 hours or until it's crispy. 150 years ago, people dried their meat by building a wooden pyramid over a small fire and hanging the meat slices on that. After 15 hours, this is what you should get. Toss it in the food processor until it becomes a powder. Do the same with the blueberries. In the old days, they'd grind it with a rock to crush it into a powder. Generally, well-dried meat will weigh just slightly less than 1/3 of its raw weight. Therefore, 6 pounds of raw lean meat will yield about 2 pounds of thoroughly dehydrated meat. For our next step, we need to cut the fat into small pieces about a 1/2 inch square. So place the fat in a pot on the stove and heat it up to a temperature between 225 and 250 degrees. And you don't gain anything from getting it any hotter than that other than destroying the fatty acids, which we want to do as little as possible. Now for the first 10 minutes you want to keep this on medium-high heat, and you want to stir it about every minute. And this will allow enough of the fat to be liberated to coat the bottom of the pot without burning the bottom of the fat. After about 10 minutes, you'll see a pool of fat forming on the bottom of the pot, which should be merrily boiling away. You can rest a little bit now and stir it maybe only every 5 minutes, just to keep things well mixed. After about 30 minutes, the liquid fat should have risen enough to cover the chunks, and it should look like a rolling boil. So as this liquid rises, you can go ahead and lower the temperature down to about 230. After about an hour, the major boiling action will have stopped, and there'll just be small bubbles rising from the fat. About 90% of the cracklings will be a chestnut brown in color. So use a strainer to separate these and set them aside with salt to enjoy as snacks later. They're really, really good. And if you don't like them or don't want to eat them, you can set them aside to cool for dog treats. So good. Sammy, you want one? Come here. We now have to weigh the amount of ground meat and the amount of rendered animal fat. We have to have the same quantities, so you'll probably have to remove some of the excess fat. Place the remaining fat on the stove. Keep it about 120 degrees. Mix the shredded meat into the melted fat and stir it until it's well blended. Then add the blueberries and mix it again. This is how it should look. The fat should be absorbed or coating the meat fibers. There should be very little or no liquid fat pooling in the bottom of the pot. Now, following the instructions from the Lost Ways, you can store it in Ziploc plastic bags and press flat, removing as much air as possible, and therefore preventing the fat from going rancid. This should keep the pemmican from spoiling for a few years without refrigeration. So let's do that. And here's what I got. Pemmican is the ultimate survival food, no matter if you want to bug out or bug in. 10 pounds of pemmican would supply food for 2 full weeks of camping activities at 3/4 pound per day, providing 2,200 calories. In survival mode, the same 10 pounds of pemmican would supply energy for almost a full month. This was just one awesome chapter in the Lost Ways, but you won't believe the survival skills we've lost to history. And that's what this book is all about, saving our forefathers' skills. But I actually realized it's also about saving ourselves from the shallow world that we live in. Click below to find out how you can get your hands on one of the greatest books of this century.